Some analysis now from Ben Aris. He joins me live from Berlin. He's the editor-in-chief of BNE IntelliNews. Thank you so much for being with us on the program, Ben. What do you make of Trump's optimism? Does it indicate any potential sign of a possible breakthrough?
I don't think so. I think we have to face the reality here that the ceasefire talks are currently deadlocked. Both sides are very far apart. Trump is, rhetorically keeping the ball rolling in so much as he's being. But if you look at the facts on the ground, that Zelenskyy has accepted unconditionally Trump's suggestion of a 30-day ceasefire, and that Putin has repeatedly avoided doing that. He keeps coming and saying, "Look, in principle we will do it, but in practice we have a long list of demands, conditions." And none of those have been met. I mean, Trump also hinted that he would cave in on some of those conditions, like lifting sanctions, for example. But then Zelenskyy has resolutely refused and says that talks can't even begin until this ceasefire happens. And Trump is pushing again. He talked to Putin. Putin again said in principle he's willing to do a ceasefire. But again, Putin said that, there has to be a lot of conditions. And now he's coming up with a new, quote unquote, document to open the negotiations. Conditions like time and time again. Most of which were part of the failed Istanbul deal in 2022. So I don't see that this new list that's going to be proposed and sent to the US is going to change anything. And I don't think that Trump, is going to accept these conditions that Putin's suggesting. But then he's still got to give them to Zelenskyy. And Zelenskyy pointedly said in his second call after the talk, "Please don't agree anything without talking to me first." And the Ukrainians are very adamant. Very clear. They want the ceasefire 30 days before anything can start.
Right. When Trump was asked if he had red lines for Russia if they hadn't complied moving forward, he said he did, but he didn't disclose what it would be. What sort of measures do you think Trump would be willing to take?
Well, that was the issue. I mean, from the readout from the call, what was absent was any really pointed threat to Putin, like, if you don't comply, if you don't agree to the ceasefire, we will do X. He vaguely hinted that there were some bad things in the works, and then he started talking about doing business again and the huge economic opportunities. And I think those in Kiev, like your correspondent was suggesting, were disappointed because without those threats, I mean, we should also realize that the EU here is pretty helpless in terms of pressuring Russia to stop the war. Even the new sanctions they're threatening won't make much difference. But Trump is in a position to stop the war simply by massively arming Ukraine, giving it all the missiles, jets, everything it needs. And the sanctions the US are threatening as well, particularly the ones proposed by Senator Lindsey Graham, which would rise Russian oil. Specifically, we're looking here at India and China. And that would really put the cat amongst the pigeons, because until now they've ignored, those two countries have ignored sanctions and bought Russian oil with impunity, but they have also been very careful to avoid bringing sanctions down on themselves. And so this threat of these sanctions really would make a difference. And yet Trump didn't mention them. He's just vaguely hinted. I mean, we're all aware of them in the background, but there's no indication that these sanctions will actually be imposed.
Okay, the editor-in-chief of BNE IntelliNews, Ben Aris, thank you so much for that analysis.